Welcome, guys. CouchPotatoGM.com is the website. Couch Potato General Manager is the YouTube channel. You know it because you are on it. We're here to discuss the Miami Dolphins. Stephen Ross, that's the guy, right? Stephen Ross is the boss over there. We're here to discuss Miami Dolphins off-season preview. 2000.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah.
2019 edition.
2019 edition.
So he's really milking that open.
Yeah. The pauses, bro.
Dramatic.
Feeling myself. Yeah.
Before we get into that 2019 off-season preview, let's recap the Miami Dolphins 2018 season. Started pretty hot, man. I think they started 3-0. Ran into the Patriots. Yeah, the Miami Dolphins did what they usually do. Finished around the 500 mark. They were 7-9 this season. They had the 13th pick in the draft. They dealt with a lot of injuries in 2018. The interior offensive line, in particular, Ryan Tannehill, he could never stay healthy. They lost Jakeem Grant, Albert Wilson. So there's a lot of injuries on the offensive side of the football. On the defensive side of the football, their run defense was terrible. Second worst in the league. So, you know, what we think about the Miami Dolphins 2018 season?
I know, that they went out and they got them a Minkah Fitzpatrick. I know that the year before, 17, I think they were the worst team against the tight end, and they were like terrible on third downs.
Yeah.
So they went out and they got themselves a Minkah Fitzpatrick who played both corner positions this year, also played both safety positions because they had injuries. I think everybody secondary was injured but him. But I mean, it comes down to Adam Gase and Ryan Tannehill, and never developed. Can't stay healthy, and that's what kind of what that looks like. Paid him like he was going to be a starter and going to be the guy, and it just never materialized. And you get what you got. I mean, I know they lost Sue. That kind of hurts in terms of not having a guy who can stop the run.
You got to get the buy-in from Sue, though. As dominant as Sue was during this playoff run, Sue has a tendency to not do his job. Tend to want to freelance. You know what I mean? And when you're paying a guy that kind of money, you need him to be where he's supposed to be, and then also make the spectacular play. So, speaking of Sue, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of what Sue is capable of, but the whole Adam Gase tenure, the thought process, what comes to mind for me is the fact that there was a lot of talent, including Ndamukong Suh, that exited stage left. For one reason or another. You know what I mean? I understand that Gase was trying to change the culture or create a particular type of culture. Again, he's one of those coaches, came from the Saban tree and has a certain mindset and on how things are going to go. And I don't know that he had the cachet. Certainly as a play caller, I mentioned it before, I like what he brings to the table as a play caller. It still remains to be seen what kind of head coach, what kind of manager of personalities he is. So I think that played a role. Of course, you mentioned Ryan Tannehill, and that experiment, for all intents and purposes, are done. I'm sure most Dolphins fans are completely fine with that. Now is on to what comes next. And my thought process going into the 2019 offseason is, I'm looking at a guy, Stephen Ross has already come out and said that, he's infatuated with the quarterback class of 2020 and Tua Tagovailoa. In the meantime, I'm thinking maybe a prove-it deal for Teddy Bridgewater. Bring him back home.
Love that one.
You know what I mean?
Teddy.
Bring him back home. See what he has. See what he can do. We didn't mention the Brian Flores hire. I'm a big fan of that particular hire. I'm actually more optimistic about Flores having success, despite the fact that it's the AFC East and it's the New England Patriots. You're always looking up at the New England Patriots. I'm actually more optimistic about his prospects than I am the former or his predecessor at defensive coordinator in New England, Matt Patricia. The defense was better under Brian Flores than it was under Matt Patricia. It'll be interesting to see how he develops as a head coach and whether or not he can actually wear that mantle, because it's a different ball game when you're going from defensive coordinator or coordinator, play caller, position coach to head coach. The Dolphins, they do need to free up some cap space. There's a number of guys that are cut candidates, including the aforementioned Tannehill, so that they can get in a position to actually be active in free agency. I mentioned Teddy Bridgewater. I think Flores, the connection he has with Trey Flowers, who is expected to hit free agency, is a guy that you need to go ahead and bring in. My thought process, particularly for the Dolphins defense, is we have a few pieces, few cornerstone pieces. All right, we talk about Xavier Howard, mentioned Minkah Fitzpatrick. You got Harris, the kid Harris from Missouri, Jerome Baker. Trey Flowers could very well be the best pass rusher available in this free agent class, considering all the guys that are probably going to get franchise tag. The position flexibility that he brings, the winning pedigree, the familiarity with the system. I think that's important. I think that's important in terms of Miami getting this thing rebooted and speeding up the process in terms of getting back to a point where they're competing for not just, a playoff berth, but the AFC East, because that's the goal. You know what I mean? There may be a few more years of Brady and Belichick that you got to deal with, but certainly that's the goal. So, for the first time in a while, I'm very optimistic about the future prospects of Miami. Again, a lot of talent left, was pushed out the door, was whatever transpired between those players and Adam Gase, it impacted their ability to win football games. That's the bottom line. You may not necessarily have, a collection of 53 players that toe the line, but you got to be careful just letting talent get away from you, particularly if they're not getting the trouble off the field, and and it may be just a clash of personalities. You got to be careful that you got to have guys in place to turn that thing around. Oh, the only thing about 2018 that really excited me was Frank Gore. Frank Gore was terrific. Frankie was terrific. Yeah. And frankly, that entire stable of backs. I don't know that Miami will actually bring him back, but that stable of backs is something to be excited about going into the 2019 season.
When you talk about a Brian Flores coming in, the one thing that the New England Patriots do, and you can go back and you look, is that they bring guys from the bottom up, quality control coach, an intern of some sort, and bring them up, and they bring them inside that system. They keep them in the building, and when they're ready to go out and do their own thing, they don't necessarily succeed. We'll see about Matt Patricia, but we can talk about a Charlie Weiss, that felt a couple different times. But
Daniels is now back in New England. Romeo Crennel didn't have a ton of success as a head coach, and
there you go. Yeah. So you see Brian Flores. He's bringing in guys that he's familiar with. The wide receivers coach is now his offensive coordinator.
Yeah, Chad O'Shea.
Chad O'Shea is a couple of other former Patriots that were on the staff and now are a part of his staff. He's trying to bring in that New England mold. He's trying to incorporate that inside the building, get the culture, run it, and Trey Flowers would be a perfect fit in terms of that. I mean, Amendola's there. I know he's $6 million worth, but you can save $6 million when you kind of cap strap right now that only at $10 million. But
he can lead your receiver room though. You know what I mean?
Devontae Parker, we're gonna save that $9.3 million.
Yeah,
I would.
He's
but if we're bringing in a Teddy. Can we keep that Louisville connection? What are we saying? No, yes, maybe?
That's the last good tape of Parker I've seen.
Wow, hurt. Let us know how you feel about Devontae Parker. But I like the hire from a culture standpoint, because there's been a lot said about the Miami and we can talk about the front office. Chris Greer is there now, and they brought in Reggie McKenzie. Yep. Get a guy who knows football, can evaluate. Doesn't necessarily have to make the picks, but a guy who can lend his expertise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because word is Miami's front office beforehand wasn't that good. So now we need to get football guys in there, not money guys, not guys who can manage personality. We need guys who know football and can evaluate it.
You need all those skill sets, and you brought up two things. The Brian Flores, and he's trying to bring in that culture, that winning culture, that he grew accustomed to, obviously being a part of the Patriots organization, and kind of the reshuffling, so to speak, of the front office in Miami. On the latter topic, it's important to have, again, that blend of expertise. The cap guy, the dollar and figure guy, the mouthpiece. You know what I mean? And then the guy who is setting up your draft board. I think that's important. And as for Flores, the only thing I will say is be Brian Flores.
Yeah.
Don't be Bill Belichick. you take certain aspects of what you've learned and implemented it in New England, and you can bring it down to Miami, but trying to do it exactly like Belichick or trying to be Belichick, it hasn't served anyone.
Yeah, it can backfire.
It can backfire. You know, you got to have a certain level of cachet before you can operate that particular way. So, but like I said before, I'm optimistic about the hire.
I think Flores, man, it's a lot of draft picks of the Dolphins over the last years that really hasn't materialized. So getting the most out of guys like Charles Harris, Raekwon McMillan, Cordero Tankersley, remember that guy?
Yeah.
So it's just getting the most out of those young players, because you got other young players like Xavier Howard and Fitzpatrick. We think they're ready to go, but getting the most out of those young guys will go a long way for this Miami Dolphins team. Yeah, speaking of the defense and these young players, man, let's talk about some of the veterans, man. What kind of roster turnover are you thinking that the Miami Dolphins can do this offseason?
I mean, right now as we speak, Cameron Wake, who is going to be a free agent, do we bring him back? You have a Robert Quinn who's set to make almost $13 million. You only have $10 million in cap space. You might need to restructure or renegotiate or just cut bait with that. You have Akeem Spence. You also have Alan Branch, who's making almost $7 million. And these are guys who there's no dead money attached to them. So it's one of those, either renegotiate or cut them and move on. So we're talking about the trenches. We're talking about the front line that we need to take care of and go into free agency. And, after you free up some of those dollars, you're talking almost $30 million. I have to get a Trey Flowers. I think you have to start with Trey Flowers and work your way back. Because
that's the prize.
He's going to cost you the most money. So start there and work your way back.
The prize is Trey Flowers, but you mentioned a lot of names along the defensive line. This is a great draft to be able to replenish that defensive line. Guys who have demonstrated the ability to get after the passer. Edge rushers, interior guys. Based on your review of the prospects, what's your thought process with those first couple of picks?
Pick 13, the Miami Dolphins. Cleveland Farrell.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Clemson, man. You talk about Wake and Quinn, and we're not sure if we're going to bring them back. I think Farrell will be a nice edge rusher for the Miami Dolphins. You got a guy like Brian Burns. Some people question how big is he, man. That frame, he's long. So, he'll be another option for the Miami Dolphins on the edge. So there's a lot of pass rush. You want to go inside the trenches because, they struggle against the run defense, man. A guy that might not be able to help him immediately, but it's falling on the draft board is Jeffrey Simmons from Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Simmons is a beast. If he was healthy, it would be Quentin Williams and Jeffrey Simmons and Oliver. Those would be the top 3 D tackles. So a lot of players that you get in the draft for the Miami Dolphins along the defensive front.
And they don't know if they're playing a 3-4 or 4-3, or if it's going to be one of those, what do you call it? Legos type defense. Multiple. You don't know what's coming. So, all these guys are kind of in play. So, I just can I put it out there? What are we doing at the quarterback situation?
Yes. Well, like I said, I think me personally, I would be looking to kind of bring Bridgewater in to not just a stopgap measure, but to determine whether or not I think Teddy has it. You know what I mean? Coming back a little bit further removed from that injury, you give him the full reps. And an off season in your new offense, this is if it's anything like what the Patriots do, it's going to be short to intermediate, predominantly inside out. That's where Teddy thrives. When you talk about the personnel, you got professional route runners and Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson. You got a couple tight ends that could play. Well, one can play in line, and then you have the move tight end and Mike Gesicki. It's interesting, and then I like what's in the backfield. I like the Kalen Ballage. I like the Kenyon Drake. Two-headed monster. In fact, it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring Frank Gore back. He still got tread on the tires. He clearly demonstrated that. He was the highest ranked running back according to PFF in the AFC East. Wow. So, I think there's outside of the offensive line, I think there's more talent at the skill position than meets the eye initially. Of course, every team can benefit from having that stud number 1 receiver, but again, depending on how the offense is built, you may be able to play this thing from inside out. You'll be able to get under center, put a fullback in there or a lead blocker and run a little smash mouth. There's a number of different ways it could go ultimately, but it'll be interesting to see. I think again, you mentioned Amendola and the $6 million that he's making. It seems like a lot because of, we don't necessarily equate Amendola with a great deal of production, but he's familiar. with these coaches.
Yeah.
He can lead that room, and he's still a quality slot receiver. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, as you're building this thing, you still want to have some veterans strategically put in place to kind of lead the charge. You know, Adam Gase, again, he went out of his way to bring in certain guys to help build this culture. I think now more than ever, with this particular change and where the change is coming from, with coaches coming down from New England, it's important to have a guy like Amendola in that locker room, in those meeting rooms. You know what I mean? On third downs, moving the chains. You know what I mean? So I think the Dolphins have some work to do. You mentioned it in terms of getting the cap situation right. It's time to pull that Band-Aid off that is Ryan Tannehill and move in a different direction. And if I'm using Teddy as an example, obviously, but if Teddy doesn't necessarily strike your fancy, you know, you have some options this year and certainly have some options next year with what we anticipate will be a more top-heavy quarterback class.
You know, going into this, you know, thinking about the off season for the Dolphins, I was like, man, I don't know about this team. It's just I'm not sure with the Tannehill thing. You're talking about the money situation, but man, you done painted a picture it's coming together. It's looking beautiful, man. Just, you know, what will they do? Is it
sure?
Because this is a good plan. It's a good blueprint. I like the blueprint. You like the blueprint?
Yeah.
It's a nice setup. It's a beautiful thing, and I just hope that, you know, this is something they follow, but it starts first with Trey Flowers, then with Teddy Bridgewater, or vice versa, however you see that. But I want to know how you guys feel about your team, you know, where you guys are. I know there's a lot of Dolphins fans who just kind of go with the flow.
It's stuck in mediocrity.
No, it's a little below. It's just a little below. You know, mediocrity. We won't talk about the team, but a little bit below mediocrity, even though they started 3-0, like you said. But you know, I think this is a team who, you know, I mean, they kind of got the Patriots number, and it's a team who could potentially be on the rise. But let's wait till after the, you know, free agency and draft.
Rob, let us know what you guys think, man. Ryan Tannehill, he's out of there. Do you want a rookie quarterback? Do you want to bring in a veteran like Teddy Bridgewater? And then defensive side of the football, man, what you guys want to do? 3-4, 4-3? You know, your young players, man, let us know who you believe in, who you don't believe in, man. Just let us know, man. Thank you.
Lay it on. Like, subscribe, comment.
Like, subscribe, comment.
Let us know what you like, what you don't like.
Yo, make a video, edit it, send it to us so we can upload it, bro.